Now we shall try to understand absorption of water and minerals by roots. So we come to this topic, absorption of water and minerals by roots. By now we know that the roots are meant to absorb a lot of materials that are required by the plant. And these materials are absorbed by the root in the form of solution. That is, it absorbs water and minerals in the form of solution from the soil. So in this section, we will try to understand how does the root do such a function so that it enables the plant to continuously acquire the required materials in the form of minerals and water that is to be used by the plants for their sustenance. So let us take 3 cells. Number 1, let us take a root hair cell. So let us consider this to be a root hair cell. And let us consider these to be the cortical cells. And we know very well these cortical cells ultimately meets the xylem vessel. So let us consider that this is cell A, this is cell B, and this is cell C. So the 3 cells are adjacent to one another. Now, the water will form a thin film on the surface of the root hair. So this is our root hair cell. And these 2 are the cortical cells. And this one is the xylem vessel. So the movement of the water, by now we know, will be from the soil into the root hair cell, and from the root hair cell into the cortical cell, and then ultimately from the cortical cell into the xylem. So this is the pathway for the movement of water from the root into the xylem, and from the xylem it goes into the shoot system and the aerial parts of the plants. Now, what is happening? Let us try to understand what exactly is happening in these 3 cells before the water reaches into the xylem, and from where it is transported into the aerial parts of the plant. So here we come. Number 1. cell A is a root hair cell. Now if we consider this root hair cell, that is this cell which is cell A, this root hair cell will have higher concentration of solute within it than the soil. So as a result of which, what will happen? Water will make its entry into the root hair cell, because the root hair cells have higher concentration of solute than that of the water which is present in the soil. And by definition we know that osmosis is the movement of the water molecules from a region of lower solute concentration to a region of higher solute concentration when the two solutions are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. So here we see that this is a semi-permeable membrane, and the water molecules will make it entry into the root hair cells because this water will contain less amount of solute. But here inside the root hair, the solute concentration is more. So as a result of which, water will enter into this root hair cell by osmosis. Now what happens when water begins to enter into this root hair cell? When water begins to enter into that root hair cell, the cell sap gets diluted. That is, the sugar or mineral content of the root hair cells gets diluted due to continuous inflow of water. Now, as a result of which, what happens? Comparatively with this adjacent cell B, this particular cell A will have less concentration of solute, whereas cell B will have more concentration of solute. So, number 2, what happens? In case of the cell B, which is next to cell A, cell B will have more concentration of solute than cell A. Once again, since cell B is having more concentration of solute than cell A, and the two cells are separated by, once again, a semi-permeable membrane, water will have to move from a solution having lower solute concentration into a solution having higher solute concentration. So what will happen? Now water will move from cell A to cell B. Now slowly water begins to enter into cell B, and the solute concentration of cell B also gets diluted. The solute concentration of cell B gets diluted. Now, this particular cell, which is also a cortical cell adjacent to cell B, will now have a higher concentration because it has not yet received water. So, comparatively with B, cell C will have solute concentration which will be higher than cell B. As a result of which, what will happen? Cell C have higher solute concentration than cell B. As a result of which, water move from cell B to cell C. And this process of movement of water from cell B to cell C is also osmosis, because the two cells are separated by a semi-permeable membrane, and the movement of the water molecule is from lower solute concentration. This cell B has a lower solute concentration because this solute concentration has been diluted due to continuous inflow of water from cell A, and comparatively, if we compare the solute concentration of cell B with cell C, then the solute concentration of cell C is much higher than cell B. As a result of which, water will move from cell B to cell C. And ultimately, in this manner, water reaches the xylem. And once water reaches the xylem, as we all know, xylem is a conducting tissue in the plant body which conducts water and minerals. So, as the water reaches the xylem then conducts the water from the root into the aerial parts of the plant body. So this is a very simple explanation to understand how osmosis takes place from cell to cell in order to transport water from the root hair into the cortical cell, then into the conducting tissue called xylem, and from where it is transported into the higher parts of the plant body. Now we shall try to understand absorption of minerals. Absorption of minerals by roots. By now we know that the root cells have a higher concentration of minerals than that which is present in the soil particles. So what happens? The root cells have higher concentration of minerals than the soil particles associated with the root. Now, since the root cells already have a higher concentration of minerals compared to the minerals in the soil particle which is surrounding the root, it becomes difficult for the plant body to extract or absorb these minerals from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. So in this case, the cell uses energy to absorb minerals from the soil, having less concentration of minerals into the root cells, having higher concentration of minerals. Thus, once again, we come to a conclusion that this process of absorption of minerals from a lower concentration to a higher concentration, that is absorption against concentration gradient, is active transport. So minerals are absorbed by the roots of the plant by means of active transport. Now we shall understand the movement of water and mineral salts from the roots up to the aerial parts of the plant. And this movement of water and minerals from the roots to the shoot and from the shoot into the higher aerial parts of the plant is called ascent of SAP. Now, ascent of SAP, the movement of water and mineral salts from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant against the gravitational pull is called ascent of SAP. There are a lot of theories explaining ascent of SAP. And today we are going to understand some of these causative forces that are involved in the upward translocation or upward movement of water and minerals in plants against the force of gravity. So these theories explain that there are a lot of forces involved in pushing water and minerals from the roots to the shoot system. So let us see what are these forces that are involved in the ascent of SAP. So number one, we come to root pressure. The root pressure is the pressure developed in the roots due to continuous inflow of water from the soil. As a result of which, what happens? The water creates pressure in the cells of the root, and this pressure which is generated in the cells of the root is root pressure, and this root pressure pushes the content of the cell, that is the water and the minerals, from one cell to another to finally enter into the xylem tissue. The next important force is explained in terms of capillarity nature of the xylem vessel. As we all know, the xylem is the conducting tissue for the raw materials, that is the water and the minerals. And these xylems are composed of very fine tubules which acts as capillary tube. And this capillary tube continuously allows the inflow of water and at the same time maintain a column of water right from the root till the tip of the shoot. As a result of which there is no vacuum generated, and even if the vacuum is generated by the continuous outflow of water from the leaves, this continuous maintenance of water column overcome the vacuum that is generated. So here the capillary nature of the xylem vessel maintain a continuous column of water from the root up to the shoot or the aerial parts of the plant. The next kind of force that enables the upward movement of water and minerals is brought about by cohesive and adhesive forces. We know water molecules bind with each other due to hydrogen bonding, and at the same time water also binds with a given surface due to surface attraction. The binding of the water molecules with one another due to hydrogen bonding is due to cohesive force, and the ability of the water to stick to a given surface is due to the adhesive forces. So cohesive force enables water molecules to bind with each other due to hydrogen bonding. This force is called cohesive force. At the same time, the force which allows water to stick to a given surface is due to adhesive force. Now, what is happening when the water is being transported from the roots to the shoot? In the xylem vessel, water will bind with each other. Now, if these are considered to be the water molecules, these water molecules will bind with each other. These are water molecules. This binding of the water molecules with one another is brought about by the cohesive force, and at the same time we see that these water molecules also stick to the inner walls of the xylem vessel. This force which enables the water molecules to stick to the inner surface of the xylem vessel is due to the adhesive forces. When this happens, there is a continuous column of water in the xylem vessel, and this continuous column of water in the xylem vessel enables the maintenance of continuity of water column from the root up to the shoot system. The next that we come across as the force that enables the movement of water and minerals in the plant body from the root to the shoot system is called transpirational pull, or it is also called transpirational force. Now, when water begins to travel from the root into the shoot system begins to eliminate the excess amount of water that is being dragged by the root, and this is called transpiration. So, during the process of transpiration, the extra amount of water is continuously evaporated to the outside environment in the form of water vapor. This creates a suctional pull on the water column that is present in the xylem vessel. This suctional pull, or the tension created due to continuous transpiration, is called transpirational pull. So here we see there are a number of forces involved in pushing the water and minerals which is extracted by the roots and to send it to the aerial parts of the plant. So in this way, water is transported from the root through the xylem into the aerial parts of the plants. There are a lot of experiments conducted to understand the different kind of forces and to prove that these different kinds of forces are involved in the ascent of SAP or the upward translocation of water and minerals in plants. So today, I would like to explain some of these experiments which will bring us to the conclusion that these forces do exist and does enable the movement of water and minerals from the roots to the shoot of the plant. So the very first experiment that we are going to understand is with reference to the root pressure. So according to the illustration that is there on the board, we have two setups. Now, in this setup, we see there is a potted plant, but with a cut stem. And this cut stem of the potted plant is associated with a glass tube with the help of a rubber sleeve. A little bit of water is poured into this glass tube and a little bit of oil is also poured on the surface of the water in the glass tube. The oil prevents evaporation of water. Now, when this experimental setup, which is well watered, is left for a considerable period of time, what changes do we expect? And why these changes are taking place? So, after a considerable period of time, say after 3 hours, after 4 hours, the level of the water in this glass tube, which is attached to the cut stem of this potted plant with the help of rubber sleeve, will begin to rise. As we can see from this two setup, in this setup, the level of the water is less in the glass tube, and at the end of the experiment, this level of the water is much more in the glass tube than what it was in the beginning. Now, why this water level is rising? The answer is the roots that are embedded in the soil of this pot is continuously absorbing water. And this water, when enters into the cortical cells, creates hydrostatic pressure. This hydrostatic pressure then keeps on pushing the cell sap, that is water along with mineral salts, from one cell to another, until and unless this water and mineral is finally pushed into the xylem vessel, so that from the xylem vessel the water and minerals rise up into the aerial parts of the plant body. So from here we can see the root is intact. There are no leaves in this cut stem. So we can understand there is no transpirational pull, because this particular cut stem is not transpiring. So the only causative factor or the force which must have enabled the upward movement of the water and mineral is due to root pressure developed in the roots of this cut shoot. So with that, we conclude that in this experiment, the continuous rise in the water column in the glass tube is due to the hydrostatic pressure or the root pressure that is developed in the cells of the root. Today we are going to understand that xylem is a conducting tissue with the help of an experiment which is shown as setup A and setup B on the board. In setup A, you see there is a cut stem where xylem has been kept intact. And in setup B, you see that the stem from which xylem has been removed. Now these two setups are kept for a considerable period of time and then concluded for whether xylem is the conducting tissue for water and minerals or not. After a period of time, we will find that this cut shoot, which is put in a beaker of water, will have erect, stout and expanded leaves, which proves that these leaves are continuously getting water from this cut shoot, and that is the reason it is standing erect, it is turgid. However, in setup B, we see that since xylem has been removed from this cut shoot, after a period of time, the leaves present on this cut shoot will begin to wilt or undergo limbing. So from these two setups, we can easily conclude that xylem is the conducting tissue in plants.